Hey, what's up? Chad? Everybody?
How's it going, guys? Sorry, a little bit late over here.
Yeah, no worries. I feel like they improved the waiting room music. Did you also it sounded different to
I
me.
didn't hear it at all, to be honest. So I don't. It's only for you.
Oh.
It's only your music.
Oh, I think that might have just been in my head.
You want to hear something kind of funny? I uh
Yeah, sure.
I just grabbed some like quick food before jumping on here, just because I needed to eat the thing, because I had some plans afterwards. But I got some Chinese food, and I had a fortune cookie, and I think they're just getting really lazy about the fortune cookies, because the fortune cookie was let me actually read the actual cookie because it was quite funny. Uh, It says, an adventure filled with good food and friends awaits. I'm just like, you're all just getting kind of fucking lazy now, aren't you? I mean, obviously, I'm
Oh yeah.
sitting down with friends eating food. That's kind of what you do.
Yeah, they give terrible fortunes nowadays. Mine just says buy more Chinese food.
I want to know, like, at some point, they're just going to have ChatGPT do it, right? Like, they're just going to just ChatGPT, write me 100 fortune cookie things, proverbs, what do you want to call them?
Yeah, I wonder who writes those.
It's definitely got to be ChatGPT going forward, because you don't need to you don't need to pay a Chinese guy in Shanghai to write these things anymore.
Yeah, I don't think they did that in the first place, to be honest.
No, actually, border cookies actually don't exist in China. It's actually an American invention.
Well, they should adopt them over there because I mean the concept is good. The execution really not so good.
I've won the lottery 7 times on the numbers on the back.
Yeah. Or you ever open one and there's no fortune inside and you're just like, well, that was just a waste of time. Now I get this stale cookie.
That just tastes like ass. Oh man, so how's it going, man? How's it going, Kyle?
Dude, good, good. I shared a tweet that I made yesterday of streaming savers, which is like it was the best one that I could find on chain of someone that's done a streaming savers
Yep.
deposit already, and just like just seeing like the actual like savings of what it is and what it would have been is like super nice to actually see because you can just validate like that it's that this person just saved like about $90, which is probably like a good chunk of like a month probably of what the yield would
Right.
uh like you know what
Yep.
I
Yep.
mean. So
Yep.
it's a very positive validation of everything.
Yeah, that's what is that? That is a let me do the math real quick. That's about a 93% savings, I think, or something like this, in fees.
Yeah, and you can imagine someone like depositing crazy amounts of Bitcoin for basically no fees, like very small amount of
Yeah, yeah.
fees, and like like obviously that's not really been the case because it's only been live for like 1 day right now. But I think the biggest uh, Bitcoin savers deposit over the last year has been like 20
Hmm.
BTC around
Yep.
there, and you know that was pretty large, but I think like I guess my prediction will be in the next year we will see savers deposits that are way bigger than that. I'm going to say double. I'm going to say we're going to see a 40 BTC savers deposit this year. That's my guess. I don't know, random.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the point you made earlier, like, was kind of dead on the money. Like, like, if you deposit, how long do you have to stay in the pool, like, as a saver, before you earn back the money you lost in the fees, both entry and exit, and then also you do account for gas fees and that kind of stuff as well. Like, how much time does it take? And so, because you're reducing the swap fees by like 90 something percent, or whatever the number is, you're cutting down that time by, you know a lot, a good portion. And so you're really just you're spending more time in the pool, like, earning, versus in the time in the pool, like, um, earning back the fees you pay to enter and exit.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I do see some savers like they already kind of do this, where they just enter in very slowly. So they should just make it so much easier, and especially for people that really want to go in with some size, they should make it much simpler to do so. And yeah, I think it's gonna be a lot better for the saver. Like I feel like I kind of wish that we did streaming swaps first rather than savers, and kind of like built off it that way. But like that wasn't really a concept that was like conceived
Yeah,
yet.
yeah,
So it's like it would have been so cool to have this like from the very
yep.
start and just like see how it grew from that. Because I do almost feel bad for the people who like deposited, and are still earning back their fees if they did like a crazy big deposit or something like that. But
Yep.
you know,
I want to know how long it takes until we get our first like $1 million deposit. That's what I want to see. It's gonna happen, right?
yeah, I mean for sure. There's probably I mean actually I wonder how many $1 million LPs there are on like Uniswap, for example, or like the biggest curve LP.
That's a good question. I actually have no idea. I mean, most of those things are just led by whales, right? In almost all sense, because it's the whales that have like 80% or 90% of the actual like liquidity of crypto. So like they're the ones really leading the way when it comes to like LPs and swaps and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, 100%. It's actually pretty well distributed for THORChain savers vaults. I believe on THORChain.net on that page, you can see like a pie chart breakdown of everybody,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like it's really not like skewed towards any like individual or anything like that. It's pretty evenly broken up. Obviously, like there's plenty of smaller deposits, and there's definitely some bigger ones. Probably the biggest being like around like 25 to 30 Bitcoin
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
total. Uh, but it's a couple thousand people, and it's only 600 Bitcoin in the pool right now total, in savers. I mean,
Yep.
so it's like it's really nothing crazy.
Yeah, but also at the same time, it's just like I feel like savers is like one of the best kept secrets in crypto in some sense. Like I don't think most people, not even I would even say not even like 10% of Bitcoiners even know that savers exist. Like I wouldn't even say
Oh
that
yeah,
high.
yeah, no way.
And so like hopefully like when the market goes bull again and people are more engaged and like more, aware and that kind of stuff, like and people get kind of more plugged into THORChain largely because it's like of as like better price execution or trade execution, this kind of stuff, that they start kind of like kind of walking the breadcrumbs and start like learning about all the different things we do, right? Whether it be swaps, whether it be like savers, whether it be synthetics, whether it be lending or savers, blah blah blah, whatever. Like people just kind of figure all the things we do, and they just start participating in more and more. It's almost like a gateway drug that comes into the entire our entire ecosystem. And then at that point, I'm hoping we'll see a lot more traders, especially savers, especially on the higher end of like $1 million, multi-million-dollar people.
Yeah, it was just too hard to do it before. So now that you can actually deposit with size and withdraw with size, which even better, like it should make it a lot easier for people to like validate that it's actually a thing.
Yeah,
And it's just like there's the whole platform risk of THORChain. Like the more like it's such of a new product. Like if I was thinking about like what to do with my 1,000 BTC or something like that, I would certainly not put it right into like
sure.
a brand new thing that's not tested and validated over the years. So it's like that was something we said when Savers came out.
Yep.
So it's going to take a long time for people to actually like gain trust and for it to gain adoption. It's definitely not a slow. I mean, it's a slow burn. It's not like a quick like flash in the pan
Yeah,
type thing.
that's like there's nothing we can really do about that other one than just like let time tick, right?
Yeah.
But eliminating probably arguably the biggest reason to not use savers was the fees to enter and exit, right? Other than like protocol risk. Protocol risk will just kind of like go down over time. That's just how that works. But like getting rid of the fees as like an argument of why I don't want to enter savers is a pretty big deal, like in a sense. I actually do recall like years ago when we were first launching MCCN, we were like talking to some Bitcoin, like I think it wasn't me, it was I think it was Nine Realms, talking to some like Bitcoin whale and trying to convince him to like enter the Bitcoin pool, and he was hesitant to do so because he didn't want to sell half his Bitcoin into Rune because he wasn't a Rune maxi or whatever, he was a Bitcoin guy, and so he couldn't really deposit into our protocol for that reason. But now that we have this feature and he can enter without paying massive fees. Like now he has like very little reason not to, other than just general protocol risk, which is always there.
Yeah, and if you're an early adopter, that means that until everyone else adopts, you're just getting yields up until that point. So if it takes, 10 years for savers to really become like the thing, that's what is it, like a 2% yield or something like that? Is that 20% on your? Well, it's compounds too, so I guess it'd probably be more than that. But it really depends what the yield is like over that whole period of
Yeah,
time.
but even like
Like
two percent is like really big. Like people like when you were getting Bitcoin yield on like BlockFi before the whole thing collapsed, whatever, like you'd get maybe like 0.2% if you are under one BTC, right? And if you were over, you would get like 0.00006 or something crazy, like not even worth the risk that you take on. So 2%, like within crypto terms, it doesn't sound like a very high number, but within Bitcoin terms, it's massive.
yeah. And we don't have, and there's no big integrations for savers yet, which is like something that we're
Yeah, that's
obviously
a good point.
working on to land some like really big integrations for savers specifically. Because like swaps is like, like people understand swaps and it's like whether that makes sense for an individual product or not, like sure. But savers is like a whole different beast. So like that's something we're definitely actively working on getting some big name like savers integrations because people like that yield, man.
Absolutely, like, and that's just part of the process of these integration partners that we have. Is that like you want to give them like some sort of like starting with the gateway drug of just like cross chain swaps, which is the most immediate and most obvious thing. You get them happy and excited about that. Get them, happy with all the yield they're earning from the affiliate fees or whatever it is, and then you kind of tell them about, oh, we have the savers too, where you can offer to your wallet users that they can get Bitcoin yield or ETH yield or whatever, and you can get a chunk of that as well. So it's another revenue stream for the wallet manufacturer. And so you just kind of get them starting to like kind of walk the line of all the different things that we offer, loans and savers and swaps and all these things. Like it just becomes a natural thing over time, especially as we become more and more successful as a protocol. Like people will just naturally look at it more and like, what else do you offer? What else can I use of yours? This is great. Same thing, like FTX had the same thing. Like FTX had such amazing success, and every time they launched a product, like every had such great adoption just because like it became this like trusted name, unfortunately. But like as people trust the brand, they start to like adopt all the things the brand does. It's like a natural thing to happen in crypto, but also in just general technology.
Yeah. And going along with what you said, like, so let's say an interface just adopts savers and they're like, wow, this is great. And it's, wow, all our users are getting all this yield. It's like, well, if you did swaps too, that like, and then that's what actually powers the yield towards savers. So if you do savers, then it only makes
Yep.
sense to consider doing
Yep.
swaps because that's actually what generates the yield. So it's like it is kind of it could be like a kind of a backdoor adoption driver in that way, just for on the integration side of things, because you get a big wallet, a big name doing a savers integration, then they're like, all right, well, we could, they're getting 2% right now, but if we do swaps, like that could actually, we could use our own users' swap fees to then power the yield for the other users,
Absolutely.
and like, it's just using all of our products
Yep.
because everything works together so well.
Yep.
It's one of the things I really like about THORChain, obviously.
One thing that was interesting, we were talking with, I don't think I'll mention which one it was, but we were talking with some wallet manufacturer, and we were trying to convince them to like, do cross chain swaps, whatever. And it was funny because like they had not a lot of interest in the cross chain swaps. They had a lot of interest in the savers part. They were more interested in savers than they were in the cross chain swapping, which was kind of a counterintuitive, state.
Yeah, yeah, we've definitely seen that. But yeah, even if they just do savers to start, then it's a like what I said. It's just it naturally pushes them in the direction of doing swaps.
Yep.
So it's just going to be like good things from there, I think.
Yep.
And worst case is like, all right, they just use savers, and that's totally fine.
Yeah, the biggest struggle I think we're going to have with savers like in the future is the feature itself is so like simple, it's so cognitively easy, it's so valuable, it's so like useful, it's so simple that I don't think we'll have problems in the long term. Like getting adoption and getting people to put in their Bitcoin or ETH or whatever other assets are. I think in the long term, it just becomes an easy way of getting yield on your most favorite blue chip asset, which, generally speaking, shouldn't be like a hard sell. The hardest part of it, I think, is going to be for us as a protocol is like, how do we scale it to meet the demand that I think we're long term we're going to have, and that's a much more difficult problem to solve. And we can talk about different methodologies of achieving that, but that to me is like my greatest concern about savers is like, how do we scale it, and also how do we scale it safely?
Yeah, managing risk with savers is 100% essential.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's already a good number of safety features that are built into it for that exact reason, and then probably more to come, just to like make sure that nothing can like go wrong or make take value from LPs when it's not necessary.
Right. That's when we talked about the synth circuit breaker a few weeks ago, or a couple months ago, whatever it was. And at some point, we're going to have to come back to that topic as a community and discuss how we want to solve it. I mean, in the end, all the different solutions are effectively the same. Really, it's just getting people to leave when the network needs them to leave, and just the question becomes, what is the mechanism to get them to leave? Right? Is it self-organizing? Is it first in, first out, or last in, first out, or what is the actual like algo that we utilize to push savers to exit when we really need them to? And that just becomes a debate in the end. But this conversation is not that conversation.
Yep, for sure. So yeah, but one thing that we should mention is that streaming savers is live for all deposits, but you can only access it. Anyone can access it by just doing a deposit or withdrawal, but the quote endpoint needs to be fixed. That'll be fixed in the next release. So that'll be a change that's coming soon. So right now it's not reflected in the UIs. So you won't see it right now, but it's there.
Yep.
Hey everyone, thought I'd say hello.
How's it going there, Grassroots Crypto?
Good, mate. Yourself?
Yeah, pretty good.
Keeping well. Exciting times. What's the news? What's been happening?
Well, the next thing we have to do, at least in my mind, the one we're focused on most in the moment, is getting the streaming loans and streaming savers to the quotes endpoints to be fix those bugs that are known. And once those bugs are fixed, the UIs will be able to better accurately display the fees and all these kind of things, and those features can be really kind of unlocked in a sense.
I was thinking that for the scalability, for first of $1 million, I think that's just a matter of time, because as we enter the bull, $1 million is going to be much easier to achieve. You need a lot less crypto to hit $1 million deposit in the savers. So that's just a matter of time. I think it will scale up, but I think you touched on it. It's the circuit breaker. It's when you come into the bear that might be the problem, particularly with stable coins. That scaling when the price of everything starts to go down, and you've got a lot of crypto in there. So yeah, they're my thoughts. I think that's something that needs to be dealt with at some point.
Absolutely. We're not in any rush to do so, because it's not any pressing thing at all, but definitely needs to be addressed at some point in the future. Hopefully sooner than later, to just makes me feel better to get these things solved and not lingering.
And the economic incentives are already there with the dynamic yield adjustment for savers, depending on the how close to the cap it is. So that's pretty good. People are only making like 0.1%, they might leave, or nothing. So that'll help.
Yeah, well, that's already a thing that's there. That's with the synth yield scaling. So as the synth utilization goes up, the yield for savers already goes down. So that's already a thing basically. So the savers yield approaches zero as synth utilization approaches 60%.
Yep, that's the one. It was a nice update for anyone, and I put it in my video that I released a couple of weeks ago too.
Yeah, the circuit breaker is just there to make sure that even if that 0% interest is not enough to convince people to self-organize and get out, then we have some sort of assurances and enforcement of the security and reliability of the network, and to have something there, just in case. Because you're right, is enough. If people just leave on their own accord, and that's all you got to do. But just to be absolutely certain and absolutely sure, it's best just to have some sort of mechanism to kick in.
Cool. I'll bring up, so there's a tweet talking about the amount of interfaces. I think we've got, is it 17? 18 interfaces? I think we added the Telegram bot.
Yep, 18.
I think that shows that's really good. It started off with like single chain Chaosnet just with one, with BepSwap. And now there's like 18 interfaces. Well, wallets and interfaces, we're kind of like counting Ledger and key as well. Yep. So it just shows you the options. What with THORSwap being offline for a bit, it's so good to see so many different ways to access.
Yep.
And you don't even need an interface. You can access it without an interface. Yep. It's really good to see.
That's right. The funny thing about that number though is that we have a number because we're early. Like if we were further down the road, we were more mature as a protocol, then we wouldn't even have a number at all, because so many UIs would interface and integrate without talking to 9Realms or other people and that kind of thing. And so it's just like, it's kind of funny we have that number only because we are hand holding individual interfaces to be added one by one, more or less. But at some point in the future, when we're gotten further down the road, it'll be an unknown number, some number that nobody would ever really know the answer to.
Yeah, that's why things like memoless transactions will help achieve as well.
Absolutely.
It's good. It's still fun to track. So I think we're doing that as a part of trying to then get the volume stuff correct, and then we can try and get, because we can track volume via affiliate, I think it is as well. So it's just trying to get some of that lower level metrics and data.
Yeah, absolutely. So I shared a tweet in the thing here that people can read if they want to, but I recommend it just because it's really interesting. It kind of starts off a little bit weird, to be honest with you, but it gets better further in the thread. So this Mac N BDC is like kind of like a well-known influencer or trader guy, and this is a very interesting strategy by DeFi Spot to build their community or build their users through influencers. And so they've got this like pretty large network of well-known traders and investors and whatnot that are like starting to tweet and push the DeFi Spot UI as advisors. And so I'm very curious to see like how effective this kind of like marketing approach is. Like, does it actually yield like a huge amount of trade volume, or does it just kind of like speaking into the wind and it kind of just goes away or not? But all that aside, this tweet's actually a really great tweet because it goes through like all the different interfaces that allow you to just swap in general, all the different protocols, and it does an actual trade or a swap, or whatever, between for 1inch and Uniswap and what else was there? It was Dodo was one of them, Llama Swap, like Matcha, Binance I think was one of them. Curve, I think, was another one. Just like a bunch of different like DeFi protocols, and then compare the price execution to those. I think it did like 10 or 12 in total, or what the hell the number was. And like it compared that to THORChain, and THORChain like beat them all, like very consistently, just beat them all in price execution, which is pretty. I mean, if you think about it, it's a pretty remarkable thing. Like we just kind of came out of nowhere, and we like just built a really good fucking product that just outperformed the rest of the industry, which is pretty something to be proud of.
Yeah, I think the difference between THORChain and Uniswap will even be tighter now if you just look at front end quotes, that is, just because Uniswap's added like a was it 0.15% fee on their front end. So now like I think even ETH to ETH swap, like both swaps on Ethereum are very competitive, even, which I think he pointed out in that thread.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we'll have more as we get more UIs. We'll have more competition, and the more competition will just naturally drive down UI like affiliate fees just to stay competitive. I'm assuming, and so I think over time we might see even UI fees to go down over time.
Yep. And also the point you were saying earlier about we won't even know how many interfaces integrate. That's partially true if they don't charge a fee, but if they do charge a fee, then we would know exactly how many unique affiliate addresses are actually collecting.
That's true. That's true. And
so
it's hard to,
because we have affiliates built into the protocol, it doesn't need to be like a separate wrapper contract or all you do all this chain analysis stuff. It's like it's right there. It's very easy to see who's actually generating volume for the protocol.
Yeah. It's actually really fascinating to look at the numbers too, right? Like just to watch the different UIs and like see how they're each performing and where all the volume is coming from and who's gaining more volume, who's losing volume. Like I think that's a kind of a fascinating dashboard to look at.
It's like watching a free market in action.
Exactly.
He can build the best.
Absolutely.
He can build the best interface and get the most users.
Absolutely. If you think about it, like if you look at like Apple versus Google and like mobile phones, whatever, you get kind of a snapshot like every quarter of like who's performing better or who's gaining on who or whatever. But what's fascinating about crypto is that like everything's in live time, everything's in the public, and so you just have this like constant stream of like just free market information, which just makes for a more efficient market in general, for it to adjust itself and for different players to make alterations or changes because they have information that's coming to them all the time, versus just like waiting, oh, the end of the quarter this happened and then blah blah blah. It just becomes a much more efficient market if you have like just the free flow of information.
This question: is there a DEX that has as many interfaces as THORChain? Do you know of?
That's a good question. Kyle, do you know if you ever have any? I'm trying to think. I know.
No, I mean, I don't think there's really data on that. Like, there's a dashboard for Matcha that shows, or 0x that shows all the like some of the different ones. But I mean, I wouldn't doubt if we're up there for sure, because probably specifically because we've really done the approach of just make the core protocol, and any team can just make a front end for it.
The only thing I can think of off the top of my head, and it's actually not a DEX, it's a lending protocol called Liquidity, whatever it's called. And that one conceptually has the same viewpoint of THORChain in the sense that it doesn't they don't build their own UI. They allow other people to use their UI. And so like I think they have a bunch too. I don't know the exact number off the top of my head. I think it's like 10 or 12 or maybe more. Who knows? But they have probably a similar amount to them.
All right, cool. So then, like most of them, like Uni and Sushi, they build their own interface and that links into the back end. Like it's just like one deal. Pancake.
Yeah.
So
it's hard to know. Something like Uniswap, it must be a really high number because I'm assuming that Uniswap is integrated with a bunch of different wallets, or a bunch of wallets are integrated with 1inch, and 1inch being a DEX aggregator is connected into Uniswap and other ones as well. So it depends on how you define front end, and it kind of gets a little bit gray, right? But I would imagine that Uniswap I'm guessing would be the largest, and it's hard to know how many they actually have.
I'm not even thinking about aggregation because we'll aggregate into those other protocols, and then I think aggregation would be near impossible to track, right? I don't even know how to do that.
Yeah, well, it's definitely more difficult, but it's easy. It's easier on ours because we have the affiliate fee than it is for Uniswap. Because for Uniswap, I think it just looks like a transaction from. I guess you could do it from a transaction from 1 inch. I guess you could figure it out from that, I suppose. Hmm.
Sweet.
Yeah, it's probably impossible to know exactly how many interfaces use Uniswap because probably so many of them probably just use the straight up contract. So there's really no way to do analysis on it. Maybe there is. Honestly, I don't know. If anyone has
I'd
data on
be
that, I'm kind of curious.
I'd be curious to know like what percentage of the trade volume on Uniswap is their official UI versus all the other sources of volume. That's what I'd be curious to know.
Well, I think you'll find out pretty soon, based on them implementing a fee now, and then how much of that moves off of it. Now they have
Yeah, I mean, I'm
a
sure that
fee.
number's gonna dive after they actually like enable this whole thing. We'll see. To be honest, I don't understand why they're even doing that. Like, I don't. I know they need money to pay devs, and they have like offices in New York City, and they got lawyers, and they got devs, and they've got like a pretty large team, and it makes sense that they do a large team. But like, considering how much like uni token they have as an organization, I think it's like in the hundreds of millions of dollars worth of like uni tokens. So it's just like, do they really need that 15%, 15 bips? I mean, mm, I don't. It must be something I'm missing, but I just don't understand it.
Well, they're missing a token within a utility.
Well, yeah, but they still have like, even with all that, the uni token is still worth a good amount of money.
Right, right.
It's 2.2 billion at the moment, right? Which is about what is that? About 4 or 5 times larger than Rune. So I mean, you're right. It has no utility, and it's just a governance token that nobody wants to actually hold and vote with. Um, but still, like it's still worth 2.2 billion. I don't understand why they need to put the 15% thing on the top.
My utility was claiming the airdrop. That's that's the only time I held uni. It's so good.
Claim the airdrop and then just dump it on the market.
Yep.
This is why I personally just really dislike airdrops in general. And for Archaea, we're doing an airdrop, which was not my idea, and I tried to fight it, and I lost that battle. But I just personally think that like airdrops are always just a great way to just create massive sell pressure and pump and dumps. So the natural thing to happen is that people are going to do an airdrop. People, have a hysteria around the asset in the first 24 hours. Everybody wants to go buy it. There's a huge pump of the asset. Everybody starts dumping it, buying and dumping. It just like creates this fucking travesty of an ICO launch in a sense, and it's always just fucking terrible. I always hate it. And we do it. We just keep on doing it as a community. Like we don't learn our lessons. That it just never. It rarely, not never, but it very rarely actually works effectively. Airdrops.
Well, yeah, it's just a marketing thing. It's like, oh wait, everyone got all this. Like, I just got free money from this protocol, and now I know of this thing. So it's literally just a marketing expense, and yeah, it is kind of based off of just speculation, and I mean, it's literally all it is.
Right, but like, how often do you go to your ETH address, whatever the hell that is, and if you go in there right now, you'll probably find, 50 different random tokens just sitting in your wallet that was airdropped to you for one reason or another. You're not even aware that they're there most of the time. And then in the end, what you're really doing is you're just like locking up a bunch of tokens. So you have a supply of 500 million, or whatever the number is, and like 200 million of them are just sitting in people's wallets that will never ever actually move because nobody even knows or cares that they're there. I get that it's a marketing tactic, but I just don't feel like it's an effective one.
And the more effective one is just building a good protocol that people use. But getting the name out there is it's important. I can see I know why people do it. It's just I sort of agree with you.
Yeah.
And I think there was some study, like, I don't know, some people did some analysis on like, is that actually effective or is it not? And I think most people just end up selling the token and never using the product ever again. So it's like both can be true, where it's like, yeah, it's just completely worthless, but at the same time, like, they did hear of of the thing, at least for a
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah, you're right. The best way to market is just to build something of value, build something useful, build something valuable, something that has a good value proposition, and just let the product, be the marketing itself, which is largely what how THORChain, approach things for the most part. It's just let's just build something that's really good, really valuable, very solves a hair on fire problem, and that's the way you build up a good product with a good user base.
Yep. So other than streaming savers, sorry, going back to this, there's also streaming loans which are live, but they can't be accessed yet, not until the next version. So I think people are probably going to have to wait until that's accessible. It is accessible in the protocol. You can do it, but the quotes are still incorrect because the quotes weren't added correctly. And I think THORSwap, which is one of the two interfaces, THORSwap and Lens. I think THORSwap might have paused it right now just because of the all the quote wackiness and things like that. So I would just hold off for a little bit until the next version is adopted, which should be pretty soon.
Yeah, you can do it now if you handcraft your message. You can open up a loan with stream a loan. I think it's already happened a few times. Like people have actually done it, but you're right. Just the quotes in point that's got a bug in it. We have to fix, which is literally going out today at some point.
Yeah, exactly. So it should be out pretty much ASAP. Then everyone can stream savers and loan. Then we have streaming everything. So
Yeah, another
exciting.
one. Those two features, in my mind, are feature complete, with the exception of savers. There's one more feature I'd like to add to savers at some point in the future, where I'd like to add fixed rate interest for savers. That's something I've been toying with for quite a while, and I know how to do it. But at some point in the future, I want to add that, but not today or tomorrow. Just probably next year.
Cool. Yeah. So fixed rate and circuit breaker for savers.
Yeah, circuit breaker is also an important thing to do for sure.
We gotta call it something else other than the circuit breaker. I hate that name for
Yeah, you
what
can call it.
what these
I
things
don't.
are.
You can call it something else. I don't want to know a better term for it. To be honest with you, I'm open to other suggestions, ideas. The other thing that I kind of wanted to bring up, I thought would be really interesting concept, and I just floated it to the community like a half hour ago, but or an hour ago, whatever it was. But is this idea of like swapper clout, and so the problem that it's trying to solve is that um, is primarily the biggest problem it's trying to solve is that like our bots are obviously armoring our pools, and we want them to be as capital efficient and as effective as we can make them, right? And we saw recently in the FTX like hacker, like all the volume passing through, that there were times in which the pool price kind of deviated from the market price, in part because the ARB bots with with limited capital tried to ARB the pools back, but they didn't have enough capital to do it in a single trade, and so but their first trade got like held up in the delayed outbound for like an hour or something like this, and so they couldn't do another trade for like an hour. So it took the pool like hour, 2 hours, something like this to actually get like our back. And so the idea is that like we can change the way that delayed outbound works, and we can give kind of like more leniency to how long transactions are delayed to swappers who have done a lot of volume in the past, right? And so like we effectively assign a clout number or a reputation score or a clout score, whatever you want to call it, to individual addresses based upon the amount of rune they have spent in swap fees since the beginning of the chain, which was like years ago. And so if you're making like, say you're making like a $10,000 swap, hypothetically, and you've paid $10,000 in swap fees historically in rune value, then the delayed outbound would be effectively reduced to zero, right? And so you would have no delay on your transaction. So for ARBs who are doing, and power users who are doing like, vast majority of the trade volume of the network, like their outbounds would be significantly reduced in terms of how long those are delayed. And because you're reducing the delay of those values, those outbounds, the other ones are also reduced as well inherently, because the delay itself is relative to the amount of output value being pushed out. And so if you're excluding, in some sense, the RBOS because they're like known good actors in a sense, the rest of them also get significantly reduced outbound delays. And so I think like the net result of this would be a really happy medium in my mind between the giving users like the best UX you can give them and can very fast execution on trades and swaps, and balancing that with security of the network. In the past, people have actually literally brought the topic of like, let's just get rid of the outbound delay entirely and just like cap it and get rid of it up, like make it the whole thing. And I've always kind of fought against that personally, but I feel like this is actually a really good balance between those two things because you're being much more smart and much more targeted about how you're applying the delayed outbound, and you're focusing it really on not so much the ordinary traders or the power users or the art bots. What you're really focusing it on is like the unusual traders or the suspicious traders or the, this guy came out of nowhere and it's like trading like $100 million or something like something crazy, whatever. That's when you really see the outbound delays like really applied, and that normal situations and transactions will be like significantly reduced, if not entirely eliminated. And so like I think that's going to be, it's an interesting idea for the community to debate and argue, and whether that's a good idea or not. But to me, it sounds like a pretty good idea.
Yeah, so essentially, the more volume that you do, the more the more fees you'll generate, and that increases your score. And
Mm-hmm.
then, would that what would actually cause the threshold at which you're delayed to go down? Is it based on like the top ranking, like the top like scores are the ones that get the or removed delays, or is it
No,
based on like a score threshold?
it's based upon when we calculate. Say you have an outbound transaction of like $10,000, right? When we calculate how much your outbound is going to be delayed, it's relative to the total value. Is like this the size of your trade and the size of the total value that's being scheduled to be outbound. So if there's not a lot of volume and everything's a pretty like subdue and everything like that, then like nobody's getting delayed very much at all. But if somebody like exploited the network and they're like they're extracting $10 million worth of assets or something like this, then that's a huge amount of value, and then like all transactions are delayed in that hypothetical scenario. And so when we calculate how much outbound value is going out, we subtract the clout scores from each of these outbounds and your outbound to have a new value that's far smaller and far less than what it is like the actual value, like the actual value minus the clout score value effectively. And so that just makes the whole thing a lot more efficient and a lot more user friendly.
Got it. And do you think it makes sense that the cloud score doesn't depreciate over time? That it's just up only, or do you think it should have some kind of like recency, or maybe discount older volume and only take into account newer volume, or do you think it makes sense that it's like an up only thing?
To me, I would calculate the cloud score as an up only thing, but we could imply like a maximum cap to how much cloud score can be applied to any particular outbound. So it wouldn't be like an infinite number. So like we wouldn't want to give more than a I don't know $1 million cloud score applied to a particular outbound, but maybe they've earned 5 million. I don't know. Something like that might be possible. But to me,
Right. Yeah, that does make sense.
it should just be like an up only thing, just to track the score correctly, and then we can handle that number, whatever that number is. With we can divide it by two. We could do set a maximum of 1 million. I mean, there's a bunch of different things you theoretically could do, and we can talk about those things too. Like we can have that debate within the community.
Brana Vegeta, do you have a question? And if anyone else has questions about this, it is a completely new concept that is just like starting discussion on right now. So if people have questions about it, go for it. Vegeta.
Hi. I don't have a question about this. I've been kind of out of the crypto scene for a while. I basically sold everything in summer of 2021 and never looked back. But I did hold a lot of Rune before, made a good profit. But I was just wondering, what is what are the plans for XMR? I don't know if you guys already went over this, but I just wanted to know. Do you guys have any plans to integrate XMR to THORChain?
So XMR is a very kind of complex topic. It is something. XMR is Monero, by the way, if anybody doesn't know. Um, so Monero is by far the most complex or the most difficult chain to interface with, and that's largely because everything is private by default. Because you have all these ring signatures, and you have all this complexity, and the network needs to have clarity and kind of de-encrypt or dox these individual transactions so that it can make a consensus on what the transactions are happening. All that to say, it took a lot of work, and we've actually already done most of that work. That took a long time, and we actually have a fork of THORChain that's like sitting in a repo somewhere that did all the work to accomplish this particular task. The last kind of like component to getting this thing to work is how do we store those assets, the XMR token, securely? And that's a little bit more complicated than it sounds. Initially, we had done it in a way that utilized the multi-sig of Monero, but even their own devs publicly said that it's not recommended that you use this thing. It's been known to have several exploits and problems, and it's really just not recommended to use. So in order for us to do it, we have to make some changes to threshold signatures, which is what we use to secure assets. We have to make some changes to that, and that would be no small amount of work either. And to be honest, we just don't have the technical staff at this time, which I'm actively interviewing for and talking to people, but we just don't have the actual staff right now to be able to build that out. We have to do a lot of things, like we don't even support EDSA chains quite yet, and that's another thing that has to be done before we can start to do the Monero rig signature stuff. So just like there's a bunch of steps we have to take. None of them are very simple or straightforward, and we don't even have the correct staff to accomplish that particular task. So we have to there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and we need to hire the right people to get there. But my own personal 2 cents, and I know that like Lena agrees with me and other people, but it's like we're all very excited to get Monero added at some point in time, because I think it's a really valuable chain to be added for a whole host of reasons. So I'm excited to see that happen, but it's just we're nowhere close to getting there, and it's going to take quite a long time to get there.
Also, if you've been out of the loop for a while, you should check out Sarai Dex too, which is another dev is not related to THORChain, but someone who's like been in this space, and it's not a fork of THORChain, but it uses very similar concepts and is very heavily inspired by THORChain. This is SERAI. And it definitely it's not Monero focused, but like that is basically the purpose of the network, is to be like a Thor like with Monero. So it's not live. It's still in development. But yeah, you can check that out if that's something you're interested in.
Yeah, I actually don't know how Sarai secures the assets, because they're definitely not using virtual signatures, because you can't. So I'd be shocked if they did. And it's probably going to be them using the multi-sig that the devs say not to use. So I'd be curious to understand how they're actually doing it.
Yeah, do you have something else you want to say, Vegeta?
Um, yeah,
Right. Yeah.
as I said, I left the whole crypto scene back in 2021 summer. And I don't know, I'm just really wary of the whole economic situation right now. And I keep wanting to jump back in to Rune, to other stuff, but it's just I don't know. I don't have confidence to do it. If you guys were to like sell, not sell, like pitch Rune again to someone who wants to come back, or like someone new, what would you say is the biggest attraction to Rune?
Well, lots changed since you left, honestly, and not to like go too far off topic right now, but I mean, there's been a ton of like positive protocol developments. Obviously, really stepped up security first of all, and integrations for sure. So like we're doing swaps for a bunch of different like A-list apps like Trust Wallet. We're doing thousands of swaps a day, powering the cross chain in Trust Wallet, and actively working on like really big integrations that are going to move the needle, just as much as that. Right now we're actually at parity for liquidity fees versus block rewards. So block rewards are going down. Liquidity fees keep going up as people use the network. There's savers, which is what we were talking about earlier. Single-sided yield on Bitcoin, Ether, which is like one of the coolest products out there. There's lending, which is just released. You get a USD denominated debt based on your collateral of native Bitcoin or Ether, and streaming swaps, which makes THORChain the best execution environment for trading Bitcoin, Ether, or any other asset that's listed, because we have access to liquidity over time rather than needing to fill liquidity needs in the instant. So it's the most liquid place to trade Bitcoin in the world, including sexes, for pretty much any trade size. You can check the pinned tweet right now and see other people doing the same thing. So there's been a ton of stuff that's happened in the past 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, we could honestly talk for like an hour just on this topic, this question alone. It'd be fairly easy, but to keep it short and sweet, because I actually have to get going in the next few minutes. But the number one thing I would say, at least in my mindset these days, is that if you believe that DeFi is a long-term play to replace CeFi in many respects, and for us, we're specifically focusing on like sexes, centralized exchanges. And if you look at sexes, like they have massive volume, right? They all have Binance and Coinbase and Kraken. Like they literally have billions and billions of dollars per day in trade volume, where we're getting like maybe $1 billion or $2 billion per month, right? So we're like way behind the rest of the industry. And even something like Uniswap, which is like the biggest DEX by volume today, it gets $1 billion a day, but it's really only actually trading Ethereum and shitcoins. It does $1 billion a day on just mostly fucking shitcoins and Ethereum, right? And that's just like, it's kind of crazy that they do that kind of volume this early, and there's still so much to be had, and they're not trading the most like important asset, which is obviously Bitcoin. So it's just like there's a long-term play of just like DeFi being able to outperform, to be more fast, to be more efficient, to be more readily available, to be cheaper, all these things than what CeFi can possibly execute. And we're now proving that DeFi, and specifically THORChain, can outperform CeFi in every way, both in speed, both in execution, both in price, both in fees, like all of these things. And if you just kind of play this out over long term, and if you have the mentality that I have, which is that like in the long term, DeFi is going to have 90% of the trade volume of crypto, and that most of the trade volume of centralized exchanges like Binance and so forth are really going to be about fiat and stables and like that kind of thing. Then you're going to see like the industry move from about $2 billion a day in trade volume in DeFi dexes versus the 10 or plus or whatever the hell the number is in CeFi. And like you're going to see that flip where CeFi is going to have 10 or $20 billion in trade volume, and CeFi is going to have like closer to $1 billion or $2 billion. Especially in the long term, when like crypto, if you believe like I do, that crypto is going to become much more part of like society in general, and becomes less of a niche concept and more just generally adopted. And we're seeing that even with like that Fink guy, the CEO of BlackRock, talking about that. That's like a big, huge signal. Like guy runs like 14 or what is it, $20 trillion worth of assets. It's fucking insane. So long term, like THORChain's playing this game that of this vision that DeFi is going to just replace or destroy CeFi in many respects, and CeFi will just simply not be able to compete at all. And I think we're seeing that happen. I think it's not just a vision or a hopium kind of mentality. We are literally seeing it happen this bear market with THORChain, with the integration of like MetaMask and Trust Wallet and all these other UIs that are integrating with us, with the execution of these trades, offering better products than what CeFi has ever been able to do, like lending, for example. Even our Savers product is far better than what any CeFi related provider could ever have done. BlockFi, Voyager, all those guys that just collapsed on their faces, they were never capable of executing what we as a community are capable of executing. So long term, I'm super bullish on Rune and just on DeFi in general. And so that's why you might want to I won't say invest. I'll say that's why you might want to learn more and read about what it is we're doing.
All right, thank you both.
And with that, I have to get going, guys. I have a meeting to get to, but
Sure. Thanks for coming on, Chad. And thanks, Vegeta. I can hang on for a couple minutes if people have questions or we want to talk about swap clout at all. I can stick around for a couple minutes at least. See you, Chad. K coefficient. What's up, my dude?
What's up, man? I was just going to ask you about the swap clout thing, and if that could be, if you could supplement your swap clout with Rune, or if swap clout could be tokenized. And I don't know. I just piqued my interest when he started talking about it. So I don't know if
Yeah.
that kind of stuff or not. Like,
well, this was literally
cool.
floated earlier today, so this is is a very new concept that is still like being thought of. I think it's pretty interesting though, because that was the number one problem with the huge volume that we saw the other week when we were when we were the biggest DEX in the world for a few days. Whenever giant swaps were coming in, $3 million swap coming in, ETH to Bitcoin, ARBs weren't able to deposit fast enough to actually keep prices in line with the external markets. So there was, it wasn't crazy price dislocation, but, it was probably, a 10% delta with THORChain and centralized exchange prices. So it's like figuring out a way to be able to bridge that gap and let ARBs come in and be efficient, but without, being some kind of permission system where you either, obviously like that's like untenable or, there's probably other ways you could do it, but this seems like a fairly efficient way of doing it without having to change the behavior now. It's just, if you're a big ARB, you can continue to ARB as is, and we don't have to worry about your volume counting towards the outbound delays.
Yeah, I totally agree. That would be great for everybody, even the non-ARB traders that are doing smaller trades.
Right. And because that the big traders' volume doesn't count towards the outbound delays, it likely would make the experience of people who were just doing their first swap even better anyway. Because if you're just doing, $1,000 swap or something like that, or, if you're doing a $10 swap, then the people who are putting in thousands and thousands every couple minutes into arbing and doing that volume is not counting. So the average volume in the swap outbound queue would probably be less, which means you might not have to wait an hour to get your funds if you're only doing a small swap if volume isn't crazy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I just wonder how might that affect the synth utilization? Or would it not affect it at all? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think it would affect the synth utilization. It not directly, at least. It just means that ARBs can deposit without having to wait an hour or withdraw without having to wait an hour. So, I think it would just make things more efficient. And it also, an interesting thing is that it kind of puts a real score on your. You can literally see who on the network has generated the most fees and things like that, which will actually be kind of interesting, I think. And I think there's going to be a couple people with some pretty big scores. There's some of the big ARB bots on the network that you see have thousands of pages of transactions that are doing swaps every couple minutes.
Yeah. I have thousands of trades, not thousands of pages of trades.
I mean, that's pretty impressive if you have thousands of trades, honestly.
Well, I've been here a long time. I just thought maybe Chad's already thought of it, possibly monetizing or tokenizing the swap clout itself, and then you could trade it. You could trade it.
Right. But the whole point of it, it could it's possible, but I doubt that something like that would work. There's other ways of doing it. You could do a bond or something like that. You could have, swappers put up some kind of bond where they could get slashed or something, but then it creates like an extra barrier where it's like, you want swappers and arbors to be as capital efficient as possible, so that they got to put up half of their stack into just a bond just sitting there. They're going to be less efficient at arbing. So
Not efficient, right? Right. No, that makes sense. Keep it simple. And
yeah,
then
so it's a brand new concept. So we'll see, if this gains any traction at all. Obviously, this is not like, hey, this is coming out tomorrow type thing. I think Chad just typed up the idea earlier today after ruminating on it for a while. So but it's one of those things that's going to help scale the entire system. And like the next time that we're doing like 300 million a day or 500 million a day, then yeah. What was the max there last time? 550.
yeah, it was something like 530 or 550. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, insane. Yeah. Next time we do that, then we won't see any price dislocations at all, because ARBs will just be able to access capital wherever they can access it. So
Right. Yeah.
one of those lessons where it's like, I mean, it's definitely one of those things where it's like balancing, prioritizing security and capital efficiency. So
Yep.
good lessons to have, and all stuff that's good to fix before obviously the run up. So
Yep. All right, man. Thanks.
sweet, cool. I guess we'll probably call it here unless other people want to come up, or if you got anything grassroots.
No, I like the feature. I just kind of read it. Just quickly read it. It's only been up for an hour, but you're maintaining the security, which is important for the outbound delay. But kind of relaxing for the people that that are good actors because they've already traded a lot, or you believe they're good actors because of their trade history. So if you've got a hacker that's going to come along and attack the network, they're generally going to be having your address. So outbound delay is going to be utilized. Where if you're going to have traders and ARBs, well, they've been with the network a long time. They've made some good profits. They're less likely to be attacking the network on that address. So it's a good way to keep security, but keep usability there as well. So it's not clogged up. Well, you're not having to change it just because of high volume. Most of the volume is going to come from the same actors. So that way you're relaxing for these same known actors.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. Man, I was going to say something. Yeah, it's. I think it'll be a pretty positive thing. Hopefully, we can see something like this get off the ground, and hopefully, it's not too complex to actually get implemented. Right. What? Damn.
It from what I can see, it will calculate it all in the background, like from a user point of view. They don't have to do anything, and that's like with the bond thing. You don't. One of the cool things about THORChain is you can do swaps. You can do a Bitcoin to Ethereum swap without the requirement of holding a rune. So by doing this, you still don't have a requirement to hold rune. Whereas if you're having to hold some type of bond, then there's that requirement if you want to do that. So that's another reason why I like this. It's
right.
Asset neutral.
Yeah. So the thing I was going to say is that it's not gameable. So it's not something like if you somehow had like an exploit sitting there that you could just start like signing out funds from the network, which would be extremely difficult to do anyway. What you would have to do is then you would have to effectively donate whatever the threshold would be in order to get those funds signed out instantly, rather than be in the outbound delay. So you would have to effectively donate your profit of whatever the extraction value is in order to bypass the outbound delay. So there's really no way to game that, because that rune value is just donated to the nodes and the LPs. So that's not something that you could collect on, right? So it's not really something that you could game. It's really something you have to do naturally. And if you're a black hat or something like that, you're not going to run an ARB bot for 6 months to do some kind of attack or something like that. So it creates a big barrier to entry for bad actors, while still allowing good actors to do what they do.
That's right. To steal 100,000, you have to donate 100,000. It's like a zero sum game.
Yep. Exactly. All right, guys. Sounds good. Let's wrap it up. See y'all next week. Peace.
See ya.